Good afternoon and welcome to the Stanton Distinguished Leaders Series. I'm Pietra Rivoli, the Vice Dean here at MSB. This lecture series was founded by Georgetown parents, Dan and Mary Stanton, to provide opportunities for Georgetown students to hear inspirational stories like you're going to hear today. Okay. We are so excited to welcome back to the Hilltop Nicolas, Jammet, Jonathan Neman, and Nathaniel Ru, all graduates of the Georgetown MSB class of 2007. Okay. Nicolas, Jonathan, and Nathaniel founded Sweetgreen in Georgetown just 3 months after graduation, because as students, they were hungry for simple, seasonal, healthy, real food. The mission-driven brand's strong ethos, embodiments of passion and purpose, tech-forward thinking, and investment in local communities has enabled Sweetgreen to disrupt the fast casual space and grow into a national brand. In 2016, Sweetgreen was recognized as a key innovator in the food space and named one of Fast Company's most innovative companies. Okay. Nicolas from New York City is Sweetgreen's Chief Concept Officer. I'll say that Nicolas was in my class in 2006, and he received an A. Okay. Jonathan, a native of Los Angeles, is the CEO. Okay. And Nathaniel, originally from Pasadena, is the organization's Chief Brand Officer. All three founders have appeared on Inc.'s 30 Under 30, Forbes' list of 30 Under 30, and Food & Wine's 40 Big Food Thinkers, 40 and under. Okay. Once you get to 50, they stop doing these kinds of things. Okay. Joining our panel today is Alyssa Lovegrove, the Managing Director of Georgetown's Entrepreneurship Initiative, teaching professor of entrepreneurship and management, and academic director of Georgetown's new Pivot program, which is a non-degree certificate in business and entrepreneurship for formerly incarcerated individuals in the District of Columbia. Okay. After a career in consulting and finance, Alyssa became an entrepreneur, co-founding the Great Little Trading Company, a UK-based online retailer of children's household products. In 2007, she launched the new venture Mentors to support aspiring entrepreneurs from underserved economic communities. Okay. Alyssa also works with employment partners to provide internships for learning disabled young adults, and she works with Dog Tag Bakery, an entrepreneurship-based transition and reentry program for disabled veterans. Okay. Now, finally, for our moderator. So we asked Nicolas, Jonathan, and Nathaniel to name their favorite professor while they were here at Georgetown. And they all agreed without hesitation, and they were all enthusiastic in naming Professor Will Finnerty. Okay. So we asked Will back to the Hilltop to moderate this conversation today. Will is also an MSB alum. On graduating, he received a finance award, which ultimately led to a career in wealth management. In the year 2000, he came back to Georgetown and began teaching entrepreneurship. He remained on our faculty here for 16 years. Okay. Will was recently named one of Barron's top financial advisors nationwide for 2019. Will is the head of Finnerty Partners within UBS Private Wealth Management in Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming back our Sweetgreen founders to the Hilltop. We hope you enjoy this conversation and look forward to your participation during the Q&A. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sitting in the Tombs about 12 years ago, and these fine young gentlemen are in front of me with a business plan. It was just a few pages. I don't know if you remember this. I remember distinctly sitting with you guys. And they were nervous, and they asked me for advice, which always means money. And I remember looking at the revised business plan, because each of them were great students and had built separate business plans. We weren't allowed to do restaurants. That was one of the things that Georgetown was pretty clear on. And I remember being really excited for you guys and also pretty nervous. If you know anything about starting restaurants, it's really, really difficult to do. So little did we know the journey that you guys would be on. And now here we are, 12 years later, discussing your amazing success. For those of you that don't know, their recent success in the news was they were valued at $1 billion, which is sort of called a unicorn. It's incredibly rare. And to do that in the restaurant business is almost impossible. We're very lucky to have you guys here, and I can speak for Georgetown. We're incredibly proud of you. So can we clap your hands one more time for you guys? So I think the best place to start is from the beginning. Nate, I think, although they like to riff, these guys have done this kind of thing a million times. I'm going to allow them to jump in and do whatever they like. But I do want to start from the very beginning, maybe tell the group how you started, what brought you guys together, and if you don't mind sharing some of the problems that happened early on, how it evolved into Sweetlife and some other things, that'd be awesome.
Happy to. And yeah, thank you for having us today. We were sitting in the seats that you are in today about 14 years ago. I met John in accounting class freshman year. I sat behind him. He was wearing a Lakers t-shirt, and we bonded from both being from LA.
And I got a C.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Fast friends, fast friends. And Nick and John actually lived on the same floor, Harbin 6, freshman year, and they were fast friends because they shared a passion for food. And the reality was we weren't the best of friends in college. We were more acquaintances, friends. We would always talk about business ideas. And we all went abroad our junior year. And when we came back, we shared a lot of conversation around entrepreneurship. We weren't necessarily happy with the options on campus in terms of food. Maybe you guys can relate to that. I think it's much better than when we were there. But there wasn't anything kind of healthy, accessible, but also aligned with our values. And so one of the first problems we set out to solve was just food. And it was food on campus, and it was food off campus. And we wanted to figure out how could we kind of create something essentially for ourselves in the beginning and then for more in the future. But we were off campus. We were going to two places a lot off campus. One was Chipotle, which you can't eat every day, and then Dean and DeLuca, which was actually way too expensive for us. And so we kind of found this niche in the market where there was an opportunity to have something that was fresh, healthy, but also affordable and fast. And so that's kind of how the idea started. I'll pass it to John and Nick to kind of finish the story.
Sure. So let's see. We lived on Bank Alley, right across from that very first Sweetgreen, and we would walk by an abandoned burger store every single day. And we had this idea, but we didn't have a place for this idea. And what's crazy, if you guys see that space today, and it kind of looks like it's a Sweetgreen, right? It's white and green and the whole thing. We didn't do anything to that. It was a historical landmark building that was always like that. Before we were there, it was an old burger shop. And so we decided it was time. It was like, okay, we're going to do this. We wrote a business plan. The first business plan was like 7 pages. It was called Greens. And we photoshopped two spinach leaves together as our logo. And we made a menu, had a picture of some furniture, a financial plan in there, a lot of things that we learned here. And we just put it together. We put on suits for probably the first and last time ever for a meeting. And I remember going to, there was a sign on the door. It was owned by East Bank. And so East Bank still owns a lot of real estate here in the area. After, probably 30 days of calling in a row, we finally got the meeting. So we put on the suits. We walk in. We bring the business plan. We're like, we have this great idea. And she's like, so it's a school project? We're like, well, no, this is real. This is real, and we have this, we're really going to do this. And she's like, okay, where's the money? We don't have the money, but we're going to get the money. She said, where's the architect? Don't have that. Who's the chef? This guy. It's just, And so, I give it to her. Her name was Marcy. She really challenged us. She's like, go figure it out. She's like, come back here, show me you have the money, show me you have a real plan, get an architect, like figure this thing out. And so we went and spent all of our first semester and the beginning of second semester. We probably asked 200 people, maybe more, to invest in the very first restaurant. We raised $300,000 while we were seniors at Georgetown. To give you an idea, about 200 and something people we asked, and to Will's point, we asked for advice, but really we wanted money. And at the end, we got about 50 people to give us the money for $300,000. So if you do the math, it was just a little over $5,000 per person. So they didn't have Kickstarter back then, but if they did, it would have probably been more efficient. So we raised the money. We thought we were going to open in April of 2007. So we now have about 100 restaurants. All 100 restaurants have been delayed. The very first one was no different. And so instead of opening April 1st, we were continually delayed. I remember graduation day. We were caps and gowns, families here, run back to the construction site. They're still working on it. And then fast forward a few months later, August 1st, 2007, we finally opened our doors. We opened our doors to the public and had a big party to celebrate. And that was the beginning of Sweetgreen.
And there's a photo. We have some embarrassing photos we brought of us. So I don't know, you can pull those up, of our very first opening day. So the story is, there was a moment when we were about to open. All of our parents are here. Actually, a lot of my family's over there. And we had invited our entire network of friends and family, and there was a moment where we were about to put up our menu boards on the restaurant, and we were sitting there. It was this big moment because we'd spent so many months designing these magnetic menu boards that would fit kind of along the wall, and when we tried to put the magnetic menu boards onto the steel, it didn't stick. And at that moment, we realized our magnetic menu boards didn't stick to stainless steel, which we had bought. And so we had to open the restaurant with no menus. And it was like those types of small crisis things that happened along the way that we have a lot. I think there's a photo somewhere. Maybe you can bring it up later. It's a lot of moments like that kind of brought us together, and crisis sometimes equals opportunity. And one of the biggest moments and stories that happened to us actually happened to Nick's laptop, which I'll let him share as well.
So like Nate and John said in the beginning, every single day there was a different crisis or something we didn't know, or, it was really this kind of like take it day by day and learn as you go, because we were first-time entrepreneurs. This was our first job. And so probably one of our first big crises was when it was the day before opening day. We were ready to train our employees, which was 4 people we had convinced from Chipotle to come work for us and 8 students. And orientation was a 45-minute session that we decided to have in the restaurant. And so we were working out of our apartment on Bank Street, which was our office. And we leave the apartment, leave our computer behind, go train our, today orientation is like a week-long process. It was this 45-minute session. And we come back to the apartment, and the apartment had been robbed. And so our computers had been stolen, or mine that had all of the backup and all of the recipes, operating manuals, like the plans, the design, kind of everything we had spent second semester working on. And this was before the days of really backing up to the cloud. So we were left with almost nothing. And this was the day before, 300 friends and family were flying around the country to celebrate the opening. So we stayed up all night recreating things, searching through emails. I have this really funny memory of Nate's dad, Wesley, actually in the back of the restaurant chopping onions an hour before the opening. And so we just made it work, and the party came, and we were ready. And so it was just this really funny first crisis. But aside from the lesson of backing up, that was this one early lesson that no crisis is too big to overcome, and if we come together and use the resources we have, we can definitely make it through anything. And even though that seems small today, when we were starting the business, it felt like everything. And early on, thinking about why we started Sweetgreen, it didn't start with this idea of this like global food system we wanted to solve, right? It was a problem we were solving for ourselves. We were 3 Georgetown students that were having this daily conversation, this daily problem of where to eat that made us feel good. And so as we started to dive deeper into that problem, the 3 of us came and grew up in environments where our parents were entrepreneurs, our parents built businesses, and we saw them, we saw the work that it took to build something. And so we said, we'll build this ourselves, we'll solve this problem ourselves. And the deeper and deeper we got into it, we realized, okay, this isn't just a problem in Georgetown. This is a problem, in DC, in the country, and eventually the opportunity keeps getting bigger even today. And so for us, we started Sweetgreen just to solve a problem we had in our daily lives. And I think some of the best businesses are started by people just trying to solve problems they have.
But yeah, I think the naivete really worked to our advantage. If we knew 1/10 of what we know today, we would have never done this. No, honestly, we knew nothing, and so it sounded really simple, right? Local, it was like, local food and making it from scratch and serving it to people. It sounded really simple. Go to farmers, buy it from them, come to the restaurant, you chop it up and you serve it. It all sounds so simple when you know nothing, and that's why no one in the industry had ever done it. They knew too much to try to do that. But we approached it from the customer angle, which I think is really important. Is just always approaching it from this obsession around what the customer wants, not what's the way it's done. And it was that not knowing and just approaching it from that customer lens that allowed us to do something that was, kind of unconventional at the time.
It's a great jumping off point for, I guess, the transition a little bit in the conversation. That is about the food, this amazing food. By the way, who in here has had a Sweetgreen salad? Please raise your hand. Isn't that awesome?
Who in here has the Sweetgreen app?
Hey, look at that. I think over 1 million people have it. I wanted to share something with you. Jack, Jameson, could you guys stand up for a second? So if you've ever wondered what a person would look like if they were made out of Sweetgreen, these are my kids. My wife eats it constantly. You can sit down. You can sit down. My wife is obsessed with Sweetgreen, so they're literally the human representation of the food. So, yeah, could you guys talk to us a little bit about that? How did you create food that is really, really good? And maybe talk a little bit about this farmer connection that you guys, the connection that you make, the constant evolution of your menu and how you connect with your customer.
Sure. So, as I talk about this problem we had in our lives every day, the problem is that there was no food that really made us feel good, no food that we got really excited to eat every day and then, felt excited after eating it. And we realized that all of our food options that we had, the most delicious food, the most accessible food, the coolest food was all the least healthy. We couldn't find a place where you could get all those three things, food that people were just excited to eat because it was craveable or it was a really cool brand or it was easy to get, that was healthy. And we didn't understand why that didn't exist. And the deeper we got into it and the more we learned about the industry around agriculture and processed food and the economics of the food system, we started to learn why this was a problem and why no one had done it. But we really believed that people wanted to connect deeper with food. And we wanted to create that transparency and that connection. And ultimately, one of our big theses with Sweetgreen is that food is healthcare. The food you put in your body is your health. And if we think back, remember back to 12 or 13 years ago, people just had a different relationship with food in general. You kind of would just accept that when you ate lunch, you felt sluggish after. You'd have the afternoon salt attack. You'd have to either have a cappuccino or a dessert. It was just kind of accepted behavior. And what we saw that was starting to change was people were starting to ask more questions about that, starting to ask more questions around how food made them feel. And ultimately, most places they went to didn't have those answers. So we wanted to create a place that could connect people to food and ultimately support a food system that needed to change. And so as we really built Sweetgreen, we built this food ethos that believed in fully transparent, building a fully transparent supply chain of real food that was unprocessed and most importantly, craveable and delicious. And from a very early point, we really believed that no matter how sustainable the food was or no matter how healthy it was, none of that really mattered unless it was really craveable. We had to create desire for this kind of food. And I think, ultimately, no one's going to come to Sweetgreen because they feel like they should, or no one's going to eat something because they're told to. And part of our brand and our food ethos early on was just around creating food that people wanted to have. And who our customer is today versus 12 years ago has also shifted and changed a lot. It's become a lot broader. And today we focus on that kind of craveability just as much. And so as we've kind of grown over the last 12 years, we've built this incredible supply chain that is regional and seasonal, and we've had to build a lot of different systems and leverage technology to build this network of farmers and growers and suppliers that didn't exist. Really drawing new distribution paths, leveraging technology to create that traceability, partnering and working with farmers that want to grow and want partners like Sweetgreen where that relationship didn't exist before, and starting to just really track and put metrics to this kind of supply chain we wanted to build that didn't exist. And ultimately, our ethos was that if you really spend time sourcing the food the right way and really focus on buying from the right farmers that treated the soil the right way with the right inputs, the output would be better tasting food. The healthier the soil, the more flavorful the ingredient. And we started to draw those connections, and the more we invested in our farmers and making that possible, the better our food started to taste.
That is a good segue to technology, just in general. Jonathan, maybe you can start on this. Fast Company listed you guys as the #1 in the food category recently, and in many ways, you're now a technology business, where it started, I think, a little bit differently from the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about technology, the role of technology in your company, not only how you operate with farmers, but with your customer, and this concept of intimacy at scale? You guys have grown so much across the country, and it will continue to grow. How does that all come together?
Yeah, so I think today every company has to be a technology company. And for us, technology, really the most important part about it is that it brings us closer to our customer. It gives us a direct relationship to our customer. So if you think about food before, it was sell food at a restaurant, someone comes and pays cash, you have no idea who they are, were they a new customer, an old customer, what did they order, you know nothing about that customer, and you also are using, it's not really frictionless. So for us, it's always starting with that customer experience. How can we leverage technology to make it both more convenient and make it a better experience in some way? So those are the key tenets of how we use technologies to enhance the experience and get closer to our customer. So for us today, about over 50% of our sales come through our mobile app. So all of you, everyone who raised your hand, thank you. We have almost 2 million people on our app today powering our restaurants. What that allows us to do is make it more frictionless, so you can order ahead and come and pick up instead of waiting in line. It also gives us a lot of data in terms of how we purchase food, but eventually how we personalize our experience. Is there anyone here a Spotify user? You guys get like a Discover Weekly? So think about food today and a menu today. Menu today is kind of like what a CD, like a mixtape was before, where everybody got the same exact one. But today, with the power of data, everybody gets a different mixtape. It knows that you don't eat meat and you do, and so someone's cilantro tastes like salt, and someone hates seafood. How do we then leverage that data to personalize the experience? If you think about this world of personalization, a lot of personalization has been done not for the consumer's benefit. A lot of, I don't want to get into social media, but if you think about what they've done with the power of data, think about what you can do with the power of data and food and making it a more personal experience for you. On top of that, what it does is it creates an avenue for us to eventually deliver for you. So what we're working on today is launching our Sweetgreen delivery later this year. Unlike a lot of companies which are just launching delivery on other platforms, you'll be able to open up your Sweetgreen app and have delivery ordered directly from the Sweetgreen platform. We leverage technology across the full experience in a lot of other ways, whether it's in our kitchen and how we operate our kitchens. We have something we call our Sweetgreen OS. I almost describe it as our Uber driver app inside of the kitchen. So instead of having to know how to do everything in the kitchen, how do you know your sales, know how to deploy labor, know what your purchasing is, know how much food to cook at what time by leveraging technology. And then from the supply chain perspective, there's a lot you can do. We've started an initiative 2 years ago to put all of our suppliers on a blockchain. So taking this idea of end-to-end transparency to the next level, where today, we have a chalkboard, which is great. You can see where all our food comes from. Very soon, you'll be able to see exactly when your kale was picked, at what farm, and what was the temperature there, when was it picked, how far did it travel, and really taking that idea of trust so much further.
Well, I remember there was a problem with lettuce, I think there was some months ago.
Romaine, yeah.
And you all were able to navigate that almost instantly. Share that story. It's really neat.
Yeah, so I think, for us, the point of tracking this information and data, again, ultimately is to serve the customer in a better way. and whether that be personalization or better food safety. So if in a case where an ingredient needs to be recalled, if our supply chain is fully traceable and we know at any given moment in real time which case in which restaurant is from what farm, what part of the farm, that data is really powerful because it allows us to really pinpoint whether something needs to be pulled or whether we're even at risk at all.
Many of the restaurants you were explaining that work through wholesalers, when there was a romaine lettuce issue, they all had to stop serving it. Well, you guys knew which firms, which restaurants, how it got there, and they were able to fix it immediately. Really
But I
fascinating.
think it's something interesting. When we graduated and started Sweetgreen, the iPhone didn't exist. I mean, that's crazy to think about. The iPhone literally came out after we had already started Sweetgreen. So this idea of technology and empowering the experience, people ask, was that always part of it? I think innovation was always part of it, and getting close to the customer was part of it. But this idea, we've had to evolve with the changing consumer. And I think mobile technology was the change of this past 10 years. The next 10 years, there's going to be so much more. And so I think what that means, it's really about innovation and change, not just, building apps. It's so much more than that.
Let's talk about your brand and the communities that you guys operate in. I know that you have done some incredible work in that area, and how you think about your customer, your employees, and the communities in which you operate. The school program is amazing. We've got a video on that if we have a chance to look at it. And you've also given back a great deal, $1 million to the school lunch program for 20,000 students, fighting obesity through Instagram, 100% of your profits in LA to a community foundation, helping government workers when there was a shutdown. Talk a little bit about your commitment to both the communities you work in and then the people that work in your stores and how it's affected.
Yeah, so the Sweetgreen brand is really a brand all around social impact. A lot of it, was even inspired by the kind of Jesuit community that we found here at Georgetown. And how do you not just be successful, but how do you also do good by doing that? And so from the beginning, Sweetgreen has always been, impact has been part of the brand since day one. And what's important to us is our mission of connecting people to real food kind of unfolds in two ways. One is around education. So as Will mentioned, we have a program at Sweetgreen called Sweetgreen in Schools, which originally started as a curriculum that started as an intern program at Sweetgreen. We would go into 4th and 5th grade classes, and we would teach the basics of nutrition and healthy eating to schools around the DC area. It got to a point where we scaled that to over 9,000 students across multiple cities, and it was a great way for us just to connect with that next generation and to teach them the basics of nutrition, but also show that it's cool to eat healthy. And that was kind of, at its simplest form, what we were trying to do. Over time, that's evolved into what it is today. Sweetgreen in Schools is really a partnership with a company called Food Corps. It's a nonprofit that are experts in food education, especially in elementary schools. So we're working together with them. We've contributed $1 million of Sweetgreen funds to help recreate and reimagine what the school cafeteria should be, both from the food, but also how do you make it cool? How do you make it fun? How do you create interactive tasting zones inside cafeterias? How do you use technology to think about voting systems and letting the students choose what they want? And then how do you bring that information into the classroom to kind of supplement the food that they're tasting inside the cafeterias? So we're spending the next really 24 months to help really reimagine what that school cafeteria experience can be. And so we try to find a lot of opportunities in food education to kind of help spread the story of Sweetgreen and the power of eating healthy. And on the other side, we try to do a lot with food access. So what Will was referring to is we do a lot of programs where we help trying to use our expertise, whether it's our resources or our just internal resources at Sweetgreen. Last year, we helped a family-owned business in LA convert their old liquor store into a corner store where you could actually get healthy food in a food desert. It's called Hank's Mini Market. We worked with the daughter of the family to essentially reimagine her space. She wanted this liquor store that had been in her family for ages to kind of transform into a community space. So we donated funds, And we used a lot of our resources from our engineering team, our data science team, our supply chain team, and our construction team to help essentially spend 3 months rebuilding that space for her. So how at Sweetgreen can we find other ways outside of our 4 walls to give back is really important to us. I think it's important in any business. Just like John said, every company is a technology company. Every company, in our minds, has to be an impact company as well. And so it's just part of the values that we really believe in.
I think one of the neat things today that you're going to get an opportunity to do, I'm about to turn it over to Alyssa in a moment. She's going to talk a little bit about Georgetown's entrepreneurship program. We had a chance to chat a little bit beforehand, but as she gets ready to do that, I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit more about this issue of meaningful work, maybe share some stories that you were able to share in the back there around what people are looking for in their careers, and maybe give the audience a sense of what you guys look for when you're sitting down with people, when you're hiring them, and bringing all that together. How do you do well and actually begin your career at the same time?
Yeah, I think the reason we started Sweetgreen was to solve a problem, and we had a purpose there. And that purpose has really gotten stronger in the last 12 years around really changing the food system and connecting people to real food. So as we build our team, it's really important that we hire people that believe in that and are driven by that purpose. Because building something that doesn't exist, is really hard work. There's no path, there's no road ahead of the way to build a Sweetgreen, the way to scale this type of supply chain. We're building a company in a restaurant company or food company that doesn't exist. And so for us, it's really important to hire people that believe in that mission. And more than ever, we're finding people even right out of university that believe in that purpose. And it's not just about going to a place where you can have a secure job and make a certain amount of money. It's really about understanding the work that you're going to do and the value you're going to create with your time. And so that's really important. That's what drives our success.
Anything to add, John?
Yeah, for us, other things we look for in people to join our team is, we look for this ownership mentality and this self-drive, this people who can initiate themselves. Something that pet peeve of mine is someone comes and says, well, why am I not being developed? I'm like, well, why aren't you developing yourself? And I think maybe it's a problem with our generation. Hopefully your generation's different. But I think we were talking about this earlier. I think a lot of people are used to just the very clear path in life of get a job, work there 2 years, get a promotion, do that 2 years, get a promotion. The reality is life doesn't work that way anymore. I think someone said, life is not I love what you said, life is not a ladder, it's a quilt. And that's what the experiences are. I thought that was really beautifully said. And I think we look for people who are open to failure and can learn quickly. So in a way, it's not about people who are at the highest point, but growing at the fastest speed. And that is so much more powerful than someone, if you have someone who's here versus here, but this person's going like this, I'd rather bet on this person any day. And I think that's the key, is how fast you can learn and adapt and take ownership of your own life. And I think college gives you a lot of those tools, but then it's what you do with them.
Well, I think the entrepreneurship program is a good start, and that's a perfect segue for Alyssa to talk a little bit about the program she's now running and developed.
Thank you, Will. I'm part of a program that has developed in many ways since you guys were here. Stories like this are why we do what we do. Students come to Georgetown wanting to change the world. Our job is to teach them how, to inspire them with stories like this, to give them the tools. We don't know what the future holds, but we know the students, including the students that are here today, are the ones who are going to determine that future, are going to solve those problems, are going to create jobs, are going to transform our lives in ways subtle and more significant. So I invite all of you today to learn more about entrepreneurship at Georgetown, eship.georgetown.edu. You do not need to have a startup idea in mind. You can just want to engage, learn more, find out what this entrepreneurship thing is all about. We have a range of classes. They're open to students from all degree programs, undergraduate, graduate students. We have activities out of the classroom. We encourage all of our students to get internships at startups. It's the best way to learn what's out there. There are a whole range of ways you can engage. Now, with that, I know, because I work with a lot of the students here, that they have a whole variety of questions for you. So if it's okay, I'm going to turn it over now to questions from students come up to the microphone. I think there's a microphone here. I think is there one on that side as well? I can't see. So please, we invite students, come up. I know, I put this out to the students in my class. Do you have questions? So I know that you do, because I've had an inbox flooded of questions, and I was going to tee them up, and I thought I'm going to let them do it instead.
Please.
All right, hello. I'm one of the many people that emailed Alyssa. I'm a senior in the college, also hoping to change the food system with my career, so love seeing you guys here. Thank you. I really loved what you said about personalization, and that's been a big focus in my work in the food industry as well. So I'm curious, how do you see yourselves and Sweetgreen using that to continue to disrupt the future of food? You know, what are you going to shake up next?
So the way we think about Sweetgreen is as a real food company and as a brand first. And so our values are, again, our connection to our customer. So it's not about the salad or the store. It's really that trust with the customer and that relationship. So we kind of see us in the very early innings of what Sweetgreen will be, is really becoming a real food platform that goes into a lot of other kinds of food. So we're still in expanding what Sweetgreen is, and our core product being today salads and bowls. But over time, as we get to know our customers, build out that supply chain, you can imagine Sweetgreen being so many other things. So using the Nike analogy, it started as a running company, and now it's really everything in sports. Or if you look at Amazon, kind of going from books to everything. For us, we see us really starting with salads because it's a healthy, frequent product that highlights our supply chain. But over time, you could imagine how we can use that relationship with our customer and then create personalized menus across any food category.
I think the one thing I'll add is, we believe in changing people's relationship with food and serving more of that. And if we believe that, we also believe equally that we have to be in the business of changing how food is grown. So making sure that disruption is happening in agriculture. And we started to really try to understand down to the soil level and the farmer level how to make their business more successful, how to make the actual things we're growing more flavorful. Last year we bred a different type of squash with Dan Barber, and ultimately to serve a better tasting product and tell that story to the customer. So we're also in this constant state of trying to disrupt how food is grown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. There we go. My name is Julian. I'm a sophomore in the business school. Always known entrepreneurship something I want to pursue. I was curious to hear what gave you guys the confidence to start a business straight out of college, and as opposed to taking a traditional career path. And what would you say to students who are interested in doing a similar thing?
Sure. So great question. We still ask ourselves that today. I would say that that it was the fact that we met each other. I think that gave us a lot of confidence that we had shared upside, but we had a lot of shared risk. So when you're kind of up at 4 a.m. trying to solve a problem and you have two other smart people and people that you depend on doing it with you, really helps get through those moments. And I would also say that entrepreneurship here, it's amazing what it's become, and I think it's just the beginning of what it can be at Georgetown. But when we were going to school, the only class was Will's class, and there wasn't a lot of resources. You're kind of on the path to be an investment banker or go into consulting, which is fine. But there wasn't a lot of resources, and at the time it was the fact that we found each other, and we kind of had this thing where the opportunity cost of trying to start something out of college is way lower than when you have a high-paying job and you have to say, actually, or family or whatever that's in your life at that time. And we were kind of already used to sleeping on couches and eating pizza that it couldn't get any lower than that. So we said, the opportunity cost is relatively low, and if it doesn't work out, we'll get a regular job. And I think what John said about embracing change and being open to failure is really important, because unless you're able to do that in your everyday life, you're not going to grow as fast. And I just would encourage you, whether it's in your own career, at a company, or starting your own company, being really open to embracing change.
think if I could just leave you with one thing, it's that the Sweetgreen story and most success stories look really pretty from the outside, right? You say, started at 3 kids, started at Georgetown, 10 years later, unicorn. That's not what it is. That's not real. The reality is like there is a ton of failures and like near-death experiences and a lot of doubt and like, no, really, that's really what it is it's on the verge of bankruptcy and like world domination at the same time every single day. And so many times where it almost all completely went away and we almost gave up. And like, it's just like that resilience of like not giving up and keep doing it and like picking yourself up when you do fall and you do fail. And we've had like a lot of those. And I think it looks really good on the outside for a lot of companies you look at, like when you read the news, because people love to glorify like the start and the end, but no one shows that like in the middle it's really, really messy. And so when you're in it, it doesn't look as glamorous as it probably looks right now.
You know,
ask our family.
I would say today, still every single day in the given 24 hours, we have the same thought of, you know, wow, we're doing so many great things, we're killing it, and then equally like, what the hell are we doing? Like, so many things are broken, and every single day we have those two extreme thoughts.
Thank you, guys.
Young lady?
Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm an entrepreneurship fellow on campus. And I love what you guys are doing, and I think that it's awesome that you're introducing blockchain. It's definitely going to be the future of the supply chain. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on other emerging food technologies that you're watching, or someone who's looking to go into food tech, kind of the next big thing.
Great question. Yeah, so I think what's really exciting to see is that there's a ton of disruption starting to happen in food and in agriculture. And again, those two things are very much linked. If we want people to change the way they eat, we have to change the way we grow food. And so we spent a lot of time on blockchain trying to understand not just traceability and flavor mapping, also food safety. So I think anything that enables scaling of real food, so anything that is, enables a new distribution model for fresh food, technology layer that allows farmers to improve their business. There's a ton of ag tech that's really exciting that makes the business of the farmer easier. I think we talk about how hard our business is. The business of a farmer, grower, producer is way harder. And if you actually look at the stats of the number of farmers that are aging out of the system or closing their businesses, it's really staggering. And that's why we see our responsibility as a food company to also be one that supports the way food is grown and ultimately support the soil. So I think anything in that space gets us really excited, whether it's vertical farming or distribution systems or traceability tools. I think all those things are necessary to scale food.
Hi, my name is Liz, and I'm in the School of Foreign Service, and I could not resonate more sort of with the story that you told about your senior year of college, just how it has been for me starting a business. With Meredith right here, but I've been in touch with you guys. I was the one trying to throw a rave in your M Street location, and maybe you remember. So thank you for getting back to me on that. I understand why it couldn't work out. But I could ask you guys a million questions, but I'm gonna just do two. One was, how did you know really when it was time to grow your business versus when it was time to really hunker down and focus on what you had existing and making it the best you could be? And then also, just maybe more on a more personal note, something that I struggle with a little bit is like, when is it real? And I wonder when maybe you resonate with that. Like, what moment did you feel like, oh my God, we actually did start a company, versus like other people just telling you that you had, if that makes sense. Anyway.
We've got about 10 minutes to go.
Okay, so first question. So the first one again? It was...
Just more, when was it time to really focus?
Oh, grow versus innovate
grow.
versus...
Yeah.
So we have that question still every day about how fast to grow. It's like, for us, it's how fast to innovate versus investing in our core and the infrastructure and the foundations, and it's always a really delicate balance. Again, broken record, follow the customer. It's like, just the customer will tell you where they're going, and there's certain things you have to do to meet them there, and there's certain things you have to do from a foundations perspective to maintain the quality of the experience. And so there's no like magic answer to that. The other thing that we've always been, I think, pretty good about is hiring ahead of the curve. So when you see these companies that they talk about how much money they're losing, but they're growing a lot, it's because they're hiring a lot of people ahead of the growth. And I think that's a very scary thing to do, because you only are making so much money and you have to hire these other people to get to that next step. But the reality is you can't get there unless you bring those people on before. So it's this weird chicken and egg thing where you have to get the people before the growth comes, or else the wheels kind of come off.
And the second question was, how do you know when it's real? Is that right?
Or when did it feel real? Or how did you know? Yeah.
It definitely felt real when we were putting those magnets on the stainless steel. I think there was a moment where, and maybe I'll let Nick tell this story, but we had opened our restaurant on M Street in that little tavern, and we had hired all students in the beginning. And we thought that was a good idea because they understood the customer, and but it definitely wasn't. And I'll let Nick tell that story of.
Yeah, so quickly, when we first opened, we wanted our store to be full of really cool students and have a great vibe. And so we hired all these students, kids we were friends with, and we said, it's great, you'll just work and it'll be easy. And we trained them during our 45-minute orientation. And that was August 1st, and then August 20-something came, which was the first day of classes, and no one showed up for work. Everyone just didn't, no called, no showed. And so I was stuck in the restaurant by myself. I think you were at an appointment and you had just had surgery on your knee. And so I was stuck in the restaurant by myself with a line out the door, literally making the salad, ringing it up, and in the middle of all that, some woman reaches over the counter and she goes, I'm from the Washington Post, I'm reviewing you guys. And so that was the moment we thought, this is not going to be real because we're not going to be in business anymore. Yeah, I think the minute we saw this, customers kind of coming back, this idea of loyalty starting to form, where it's like, hey, I saw you 3 days in a row, that's when we knew we were creating something that was changing someone's behavior in life, and we were creating a product that, again, people desired. So for me, that was very early on when it felt real.
Hey guys, I'm JP. The most stunning part to this to me is the 07s behind you, and starting a restaurant right as the financial crisis smashes you guys over the head, or at least from my perspective, parents that own restaurants on the local level. I mean, we just got killed and we lost the restaurants. And like how you created a product that adapted through that, and I think even more so a narrative that was able to drive folks into your store, where I think a lot of people, at least what we saw in our restaurants, was the first thing people cut was going out to eat.
Yeah, it was weird time because we didn't know anything. You just graduated and you woke up and it's a financial crisis, but it was like you were born in it. So we didn't, I'm a lot more scared now of a financial crisis than then, because when you're born in that time, we were built for that. And so it was a convenient, affordability was a big part of it. And I think in a way it forced us to keep things simple. It made raising money really, really, really hard. And that was the really hard part, is we couldn't raise the money because of the financial crisis. And we knew that was probably part of it, but didn't really understand. But from the consumer end, we realized that people do have to eat 3 meals a day, and if you create a meal that is an experience but also provides value, you become a little bit more resistant to the fluctuations in the economy. And for us, we actually learned, and we hope this is true in the next one, that a lot of people actually do trade down for this type for fast food over casual dining. So you saw the biggest losers in the financial crisis were actually the people in the $20-ish price point and luxury, because a lot of those people then traded down towards us. But I'd say we have a lot to learn about that, and we're trying to prepare for what may be another one.
Hey Nate, could you talk about the pivot to the Sweetlife, that festival? That was born out of 2008. It was born out of that specific year.
So we had Georgetown, M Street, the little tavern, opened August of 2007, and our very first winter, in December of 2007 was the first time that we thought we were going to go bankrupt. There's been many times, but that was the first time. And I remember it was Nick and I were sitting there, and back then you had paper invoices, and we had a stack of invoices, and we couldn't pay it. And we had to figure out how to get through that. Didn't pay ourselves the whole month. We had to kind of trim down the shifts. Eventually we got through it, and by the time April rolled around in 2008, the business started picking up, the weather turned, cherry blossoms were out, and that's the time when we felt like there was some momentum behind the company, and that was the time that we started looking for our second restaurant, and we found our second location in DuPont Circle. It was much bigger. It was 4 times the size of our Georgetown store. It had a lot of seating inside. The back door opened up into the biggest farmers market at DuPont Circle, and we went out and we were really excited, and we went and raised $800,000. So almost more than double than what we raised at Georgetown. We raised $800,000. We spent a lot of money. It was our flagship location, and it was in the middle of the recession. So when we opened our doors this was April of 2009, we had no customers. We had spent all this money, and we were in DuPont Circle. We had one restaurant in Georgetown that was doing well, and then we had this DuPont Circle restaurant that wasn't doing well. And so we looked at ourselves, and we were like, shit, this isn't going to work. Like, this is it. This is the end of Sweetgreen. And the only, I think Nick turned to me and he said, we have to do some marketing. We got to figure out how to do marketing. And marketing for us was really 2 things. It was, selling, making healthy food, and at the time it was like DJing and playing music. And so that's what we did. We got a zip car, because they didn't have Uber or Lyft back then. We got a zip car, and we drove it to Guitar Center in Arlington, Virginia, and we bought a DJ speaker for $400, and we put it outside of our restaurant, and we faced it towards the park. And we had this thesis that across the street at DuPont Circle was the busiest Starbucks in the entire city. It was the one on the corner. And we just thought if we could just bring people over to our side of the street, that would work. And for some reason, it did. It was this crazy thing where the power of music and creating energy, and once people started tasting our product, there was trial. People really fell in love with the brand. We introduced the brand ourselves. We sat outside every Saturday and Sunday for 3 months DJing, passing out samples, and just telling people our story. And it created this kind of wave of music and food. And the next year, we did a small community block party in the farmers market parking lot that we shared with Fresh Farm. We did another block party with musicians, DJs, so live bands. And then the next year, we wanted to do a larger block party, about 1,000 people. It was really big for us. We had 8 restaurants. And we met a guy here who actually owns the 930 Club and many other venues in the DC area. And we asked him to help us produce the event. And he turned to us and he said, for the amount of money that it's going to take you to throw a 1,500-person block party with production, speakers, security, porta potties, I'll just rent you my big venue in Maryland for the day, and you can open up your headliner talent to more. We're like, all right. And he's like, and you could have your salad festival. And that was the first time we heard those words together, So he's like, just write down the list of bands that you want, and we'll go ask them. And so we thought it was a joke, to be honest. So we wrote down Daft Punk, Jay-Z, Arcade Fire, The Strokes, the list goes on. And he called us 2 weeks later, and he goes, the Strokes are interested in playing your salad festival. And we had this moment in time when, we had 8 restaurants, we had no business in throwing a music festival. But we ended up saying, you know what, if we're going to be more than a restaurant company, we have to do things that are a little more untraditional in terms of marketing the brand. And what started as a speaker outside of our restaurant ended up being a 15,000-person sold-out music festival in Meriwether Post Pavilion.
But we've got the video. Can we run that video? It's short, but it's a great way to wrap up some of the questions.
I found a place where we
But yeah,
Okay.
so we ran Sweetlife for 6 years. We've had amazing talent, and the idea was, how do you bring food and music together in a way that, when you go to most music festivals, it's fried chicken and burgers, and could you eat quinoa and see the Strokes at the same time? Is kind of the idea. But we've really taken that idea and trying to figure out how do you incorporate more lifestyle into our brand as we grow.
Well, more, you were at 16.
We have time for more?
Sure, it's up to you.
So John Stoller.
What's up?
Hey.
Good to see you. Thanks for the Sweetlife. I love that as an introduction to my question, which is, my favorite part about the Sweetgreen brand, the Sweetgreen culture, is finding the intersection of passion and purpose. And that's on a personal level for so many people. And this was clearly your passion and purpose. But how's that evolving? How's that evolving? What's next?
Yeah, I think we're big believers in, since day one, our business has evolved. It's been in this constant state of evolution. And the thing that has changed is actually the rate of evolution. The consumer is, to John's point, is changing quicker than ever today. So, when we started our business, you'd kind of, a trend would start, and you'd have a year or two to kind of figure it out. Today, the market responds within a couple months, if not quicker. And so that rate of evolution is changing, is really rapidly increasing. But our purpose is kind of the same problem we tried to solve when we were students here, right? It's how do we connect to real food in a deeper way and change the food system. So, I think we kind of embrace this idea that we're building a business that is incredibly dynamic and everything will change except the mission and the purpose. What our menu is, what our restaurants look like, if we even have restaurants, all that will change. And, we're kind of committed to that. And we've built a team of people that believe in that are adaptable and believe in change and failure and all the things we talked about. And so, the way we do it is really build a culture around that and make sure that people believe in the purpose, but also people believe in how quickly things change and can change with it.
Does anyone in here have cable TV? I asked this question before. Raise your hand high. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you talk about how fast it's changing, like, a few years ago, every single person would have raised their hand, and now it's gone. And I think if you think about how fast, you could do that in like a number of different categories across the world.
Well, when you guys dropped cash, that was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, these things are happening so fast, and food for so long, they said it's the one thing that's never going to get disrupted. And of course it is. Food is still only about 2% online. But over the next 10 years, food is going to, you're going to look back in 10 years at food, and you're going to think about it the same way you look at like taxis then versus now. And that's going to be the shift in like what Netflix has done for media, or what Uber's done for mobility, or Uber or Lyft. I think that's what's going to happen with food over the next 10 years.
Hi, so...
This way, sorry.
Do you want to go? Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm an 01 alum, a former lawyer. This year I launched a children's food company, which was created to solve my own problem. I have 3 kids. I couldn't find portable, healthy, high-protein snacks. So I launched this company, and I'm super interested in your transparent sourcing model. I will tell you, I have one product, 3 SKUs, and I really wanted to follow that model, but it was really hard to, I have relationships with farmers at our markets, but it was hard for them to I guess, deliver to me and do what I was asking them to do, and it was hard to maintain that the production while also producing the product and doing everything else. So did you guys start with that sourcing model? And did you go out and really create these relationships? And how did you scale that?
What's the name of your brand? I'm just curious.
It's Wild Willet Food. So we launched about 6 weeks ago.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
For us in the beginning, we started the same way. We would go to the farmer's market. We met some of these growers and farmers and just introduced ourselves and said, hey, we're building a fast food company and we want to buy from you. And they all kind of said, yeah, right. I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. And so we built our relationship on this kind of like constant trust and buying, this like consistent buying relationship. And actually, we still buy from many of those same farmers today that we started with 10 years ago. And for us, there came this point at scale when we had 3, 4, 5 restaurants where we had to figure out a system around distribution, a system around tracking, because we had to figure out how to scale this. And that system didn't exist, right? Some of the best restaurants in the city, that bought from these farmers, it was kind of like the cases showed up at the back door and there was a one-off restaurant, but no one had ever tried to do that at scale. And so it actually involved us partnering with our produce distributor, telling them, we need you to change your routing, we need you to pick up at these 5 farms, we've already decided how much we're buying from them, at what price you're gonna be our distributor. And so it kind of flipped the whole distributor produce model on its head.
No one does that now.
Yeah, and well, funny enough, the result from that was, our produce distributor said, okay, we know the product is sold, we just have to pick it up. Great, and now we're delivering 20 cases to you instead of 10. It's a win-win-win, and the farmer doesn't have to come deliver to 10 restaurants. So it's this incredible kind of win-win-win system we built, and the best thing it did was actually once the distributor was going to pick up from Firefly Farms goat cheese, now that distributor put Firefly goat cheese on their order menu. So any restaurant in the city that, hundreds of restaurants that didn't have access to that product now had access to it just by ordering it from their distributor. So it started to create this kind of new distribution model for local food. And so today, obviously those farmers, we have a close relationship with them and we get a better price hopefully, but it's now created access to those farmers to all these different restaurants and buyers around the city.
Cool. Thank you.
So you've spoken a lot about the importance of keeping up with the values of your customer, and for my generation, and I think a lot of the upcoming generations, the importance of food waste and plastic waste are growing, and I'm wondering if you can speak to how you're innovating in that space.
Sure. So, as we think about building the most sustainable system possible, there's lots of things we focus on, from how we source to the disposables to how we build our restaurants. We've actually, for the first time a year ago, kind of built a fully comprehensive kind of like sustainability team and report that we're starting to measure and track things. On the food side, I could talk about it for a long time, but we really challenged ourselves to think about what we were buying, the full journey of the produce, and how to minimize waste. And even a few years ago, we did a great collaboration with Dan Barber all around food waste, and really forced ourselves to look deep in our supply chain to think how we can do things differently, how we can buy things in different specs from the farmers, how we can buy parts of the plant that there was no desire for it, and how we could create desire for it. So I'll give you an example. Our broccoli farmer said, no one buys the broccoli leaves. There's no demand for it. People just want to eat kale. But the broccoli leaf is actually more nutritionally dense and is delicious, but they just chop it off in the field and they leave it there. And so we said, you know what, we'll sell this. We'll tell our consumers about it. And we created this whole bowl around food waste, and broccoli leaf was in it among many other ingredients. And so part of our process and relationship with the customer was just storytelling, connecting them to that information, connecting them to that new ingredient, and ultimately to the farmer. And it was a win-win-win. The farmer was now getting revenue from something that they were just leaving in the ground. And so, I would say we wake up every day asking how we can do one of these things better. We'll never be perfect. We're kind of on this constant journey of just how we can, and that's why measurement's important. We've started measuring every single aspect of our output and our footprint. Today, we're very focused on packaging and bioplastics and compostability, so that's one thing that we'll be spending a lot of time on.
Okay, I think we're out of time, guys. Let's put our hands together.
Nicolas, Nathaniel, Jonathan, we can't thank you enough for coming back to the hilltop. What an inspiring story for all of these students who I know are going to go out and create their own versions of the dream you've built. And we look forward to seeing what happens in the next 12 years. So we'd like to invite all of you to join us at a reception up in Fisher Colloquium. Thank you so much.
Thank you.